Welcome to the third year of our Sustainability Vision Commitment to Life. Hello everyone, my name is Marcelo Bear and I am the Vice President of Sustainability and Group Affairs at Natura & Co. I joined the organization 10 years ago and I had the privilege to work with many people across geographies, across cultures, to build Commitment to Life 4 years ago. Now, after we set the third anniversary, we thought that we should update our targets and our commitments to be more current to the world needs. We do know that the problems are still the same. We have to address the climate crisis, we have to protect human rights, and we have to build a circular and more regenerative economy. You have today in our session our leaders from the 3 business units, Natura & Co Latin America, Avon International and The Body Shop, discussing with our partners how to tackle those challenges. You'll hear from people like the CEO from the Science Based Targets Initiative, what to do on climate, from the CEO of the B Team, Hala, how to be courageous and tackle human rights, and from the CEO of the Union for Ethical Biotrade, Rick, how to truly be regenerative and how to look to the 21st century on a very serious and consistent way. We hope you enjoy our session today.
Hello everyone, my name is Fábio Barbosa. I'm the CEO of Natura & Co. 3 years ago, Natura had this commitment to life and brought some very important goals. Now it's time for us to update and make sure that we can follow them, that we can work on them, that we can bring new ideas into it. I count on everyone for that. This is good for the company, it's good for the country, it's good for the world. We all need it. All the best. Count on you.
Hello, my name is Keivan Macedo and I lead climate and biodiversity strategies over Natura & Co. And today I have the honor and the privilege to moderate this session. Together with me, 2 special guests. My dear colleague Angela Pignatti, who is leading the climate and sustainability agenda over Latin America. And also, together with us, we have Luis Amaral, the CEO of SBTI. So we are here today to address climate crisis and protect the biodiversity. Natura, since the foundation of the company, has been addressing social and environmental challenges. So allow me to start with you, Angela. I think that we joined the company together a long time ago, and we have been working together with so many different initiatives. So could you please share a little bit about what are the initiatives that Natura has been doing regarding the climate action?
Of course, Keivan. In 2007, we became carbon neutral and launched the Natura Carbon Neutral program with a guideline to design, measure, reduce, and neutralize emissions generated by our entire value chain, from raw materials extraction up to the packaging post-consumer disposal, having innovation as the main drive to reduce carbon emissions since then. So I would like to bring some examples that shows our path to net zero. We prioritize the use of natural and biodegradable ingredients in our formulations. For example, since 2007, we introduced organic alcohol in all our fragrances, impacting positively the environmental. The use of biodiversity ingredients from Amazon rainforest used in our Ecos brand is another good example once we contribute to keep the standing forest, generating income for the local communities and fostering fair trade. With regards to packaging, one of our strategies is the inclusion of renewable packaging material, such as green polyethylene from sugarcane.
Thank you, Angela, for those amazing examples about all the actions Natura has been doing related to climate action. So let me shift to you, Luis. But before, let me offer a little bit context about, because I do consider that as a Brazilian, I'm very glad whenever you have been appointed to run SBTI. It's a very important initiative that it's supporting so many different companies around the globe in order to set the standards and push the corporate sectors in order, of course, to set their targets aligned with science. But I do consider that you're the best person to explain a little bit about the initiatives from SBTI. Could you please explain to us?
Well, thank you. And hello to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today. But first, I just wanted to say I wish we were here under better circumstances, right? You already pointed it out, but last July was the hottest ever on Earth. The hottest ever on Earth. Extreme weather events are impacting millions of people each year, causing untold suffering and threatening lives. We heard from UN Secretary General Guterres that said that we no longer live in an era of global warming, but instead a new era of climate boiling. Climate change is already affecting every region on Earth. Doesn't matter where we are. And despite these warnings, which the IPCC recently described as code red for humanity, we are not on track to tackling the problem. In order to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we need to halve global emissions by 2030 and achieve cuts of up to 90% no later than 2050, while counterbalancing the emissions that we can't eliminate by permanently removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And the window to achieve these benchmarks are closing quickly. We need immediate near-term action paired with long-term solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. At SBTI, what we try to do is exactly enable companies to set ambitious emissions reductions targets, which are in line with what climate science tells us is necessary to avoid the most devastating impacts of climate change. We're focusing on accelerating corporate climate action across the world in order to halve global emissions before 2030 and achieve net zero emissions before 2050. And we do this by defining and promoting the minimum level of ambition that is necessary when setting a science-based target. Then offering the resources and guidance to reduce barriers of adoption and validating companies' targets against this level of ambition. Our focus is not on what can be done, on what is plausible to happen. Our focus is on what needs to happen. We have come a long way since SBTI was founded in 2014. From our first goal was to have 100 companies committing to setting science-based targets. Look at that, 100 companies committing. Today, we have over 3,300 businesses that have a validated science-based target across the globe, and further 2,500 other businesses that have committed to set them. Recently, we launched our 2022 monitoring report that demonstrated a sharp rise in companies setting science-based targets. In 2022 alone, we validated 1,097 targets. This represents an 87% increase from the year before, and it totals more targets than the entire previous 7 years combined. And the trend has continued this year. In 2023 alone, we already validated an additional 1,300 targets, and the year is not even over yet. So what started as a ripple is now really a global wave, but we can see even a bigger wave coming behind this one. If we scale the impact across the global economy, we can do what is needed to meet the Paris Agreement. It's hard, but it can be done. But even with such rapid growth in the number of companies and financial institutions setting science-based targets emissions, there's still much more work to be done. And I'm looking forward to continue to discuss what is the path ahead.
Thank you, Luis. I think that you share so many interest numbers about the engagements on corporate sectors around the globe. And of course, I think that both of you highlighted a little bit this bold challenge that we are facing as humankind, right? It will require an equality effort for everyone to join forces in order to achieve this decarbonization path that is needed to achieve the Paris Agreement. I do consider that nowadays we are more clear in this path because now we have clear guidance on science side and also on standard side, because then we can use the similar framework in order to measure the development of the actions each one of the companies are delivering in order to achieve their own targets. So on Natura & Co group side, what we did in those last 3 years, it was to equalize, as Angela highlighted a little bit about Natura, who has been pioneer in these climate actions inside the group, just try to equalize a little bit some of the actions. And one of the major efforts for companies like Natura, like Avon, like The Body Shop, is try to understand what is the impact related to the scope 3, because basically scope 3 represents in our case 96 to 98% of our total emissions. So therefore, without mapping and without engaging with our suppliers, it's going to be impossible to deliver any action plan. And we could finally, of course, not only establish what are the emissions, but also understand what should be the main important 5 work streams that we need to take care in the next few years in order to achieve the goals that we have. But let me go back to you, Luis. And now that SBTI, I think that just before COP26, right, 2021 in Glasgow, SBTI revealed the net zero criteria. So allow me to ask you, can you explain a little bit about the criteria, but also how has been the progress of engagement of the corporate sector in order to set the targets following these criteria?
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And you're absolutely right, right? If we don't define success in standardized ways from the start, there's a big risk that corporate climate action becomes a storytelling competition because you cannot compare, you cannot look at things through the same lenses. And that's what we did. And you're right. In 2021, right before COP26, we launched the SBTI Net Zero Standard. So the first framework for corporate net zero target setting in line with climate science. We developed this standard to provide companies, as you pointed out, with the confidence that they are near and their long-term climate action ambition is in line with what science is telling us that is needed. The standard provides this common, robust, science-based understanding of what it means to be net zero, what is in, what is out, what counts, what doesn't count, and addresses some of the key issues, such as what are the boundaries, what are the near-term action that is needed, what is the focus on reducing emissions, what is the role of accountability. By following the guidance and resources of this net zero standard, companies know that their near and long-term decarbonization targets are aligned on what the stakeholders expect that needs to happen. And this net zero standard contains 4 essential elements. The first one is the company needs to have a near-term science-based target. We cannot just focus on 30 and 50 years from now. We have to take action now, and that's what is one of the requirements. On the next 5 to 10 years, we have to have targets within a company to achieve a 1.5 degree pathway. The second element of the net zero standard is the long-term science-based target. If you only focus on the short term, that's where we're going to be tackling the low-hanging fruits on reducing emissions, but we're not really thinking how to transform our businesses. And some businesses do need transformation. So you need to act on the short term, but you also need to think on the long term, because there might be, you cannot make decisions today that are going to be working against you and against your targets in 20, 30 years from now. At the end of the journey, once companies start to get there and reduce their emissions, the third element is that there will always be residual emissions. And then there will always be emissions that are going to happen. So at the end of that journey, on the long-term target, it's part of this objective to become net zero, to neutralize those residual emissions. And finally, the fourth element is beyond value chain mitigation. While emissions reductions are taking place, companies should also invest beyond their value chains. This could involve investing in carbon capture and storage projects or purchasing high-quality carbon credits. We include these elements because additional investments like these could help increase the likelihood of staying within 1.5 degree carbon budget. And we must stress that beyond value chain mitigation is not a substitute for rapid and deep reduction in your company's emission, but something that you should be looking at on top of that if you can. Together, these 4 elements will set a companies in the path towards reaching net zero no later than 2050 and make business models more resilient to the climate crisis and regulatory changes that are coming our way as well. To conclude, 388 companies across 38 sectors have now used this highest level of corporate climate ambition, the SBTI Net Zero Standard, to set their targets. And those, again, include both short term goals and also the long term ones. There are another 2,300 businesses that have already committed to do the same within the next 2 years. And we hope that this will pave a way for a domino effect of corporate climate action.
Thank you, Luis, for your interventions and also to give me the hook to introduce a little bit about our targets on a Natura Co group. We have set our science-based target for the short term, as you were mentioning. After this tremendous work that we have done to establish the baseline and map exactly the sources of our emissions, we have this internal debate about what should be the scenarios that we look for. And after so many rounds of discussions, we decided that we should be aligned with the scenarios of 1.5 degrees in order, of course, to be fully in compliance with the Paris Agreement. And we set a science-based target on absolute reduction approach to deliver 42% reductions against our baseline by 2030, considering scope 1, 2, and also scope 3. This will require, as I mentioned before, a tremendous work together with our suppliers, and many of our suppliers are listening to the panel right now. So I claim them, of course, to work together to present new solutions. I think that everyone is facing a challenge because there are some solutions available. In some of the cases, they are not affordable, but the majority of the solutions are not available. So therefore, we need to invest in partnership with different sectors in order to achieve those kind of solutions. In the case of Natura Co Group, we have set a transition plan that will cover 5 work streams. Our biggest priority is going to be packaging materials. We are going to see later on the debate about pillar number 3, how we are going to use circularity and also regenerative solutions in order to fulfill this kind of commitment. The second biggest work stream that we have on our side, it's called Home and Style. It's a non-cosmetic line that we have under one of our brands, Avon brand. And then follow by, as all finished good companies, distributions and transportation. So how we can guarantee whenever we are delivering the orders of our products that, well, of course, we can reduce the carbon footprint. Finally, and last but not least, we have a tied position between the 4th and the 5th place because it's raw ingredients, all the things that we use, of course, to produce our formulas and our products. And therefore, as well, the pillar number 3 will support a lot about how we can, of course, adopt renewable and natural ingredients, but at the same time, use regenerative solutions in order to create the abatement of those emissions of those raw ingredients. And finally, as a group that has 2 brands that operate in direct sales models, Natura and Avon, we have consultants materials as our 5th place in order to address. I think that together we are working with each one of our brands to identify those potential solutions that we have for each one of the 5 work streams. So shifting to you, Angela, let's highlight a little bit to the audience some of the concrete examples that Latin America regions is working to address the climate transition plan.
Of course, Kevan. Transforming our business model to achieve this goal requires a series of interconnected initiatives, engaging all functions across our business and beyond, as you have mentioned. We've been working with procurement area, for example, selecting low carbon suppliers and monitoring their main opportunities to reduce their footprint. A good example is one of our glass supplier that has changed their furnace fuel, and this reduced immensely the CO2 impact in our fragrances line. In R&D, we are maximizing the use of post-consumption recycled material, such as the ECOS bottles, that are produced with 100% of recycled PET material. Another good example is that our fragrances line has up to 30% of recycled glass. With finance area, we have developed the IPNL, that is the Integrated Profit and Losses Accounting. which considers the impact of our business in human, social, and environmental capitals. In 2022, for each $1 of net sales, we have $2.7 of positive impact to the world. In sustainability area, we have implemented the Sinai tool, that is a platform to allow us to prioritize the CO2 projects using the MEC curve. Back to you, Kevan.
Thank you, Angela. Amazing examples about the integrate profit and loss methodology, but also I think the example that you highlighted with this development with the glass suppliers in order to reduce the carbon footprint of glass bottle that we purchase from this specific supplier. So I think that I'm moving back to you, Luis, for your final remarks. We are almost ending the panel today.
Well, thank you so much. Again, it's a pleasure to be here and see corporate climate action taking place in the real world. The SBTI, it's here to help, and it's well positioned to continue to help grow at scale in order to address the rapidly increasing demand for the science-based targets. And again, to make this what started as a ripple, and now it's a wave, to become even a bigger wave of corporate climate action across sectors, across the globe. Companies are quickly understanding that their time to act is running out and that science-based targets are the best way to align with climate science. And while it's clear that those targets are good for climate, they are also being shown to be good to improve businesses. I mean, I've heard from executives that have reported to me that they help to increase investor confidence, boost brand reputation, and even reduce regulatory uncertainty, as I said, because regulation is coming. Taking climate action today means ensuring a better tomorrow, and it starts with understanding how much and how quickly we need to reduce emissions. Without setting where we want to go, we don't know where we will end.
Thank you, Luis. And to wrap up this session, I'm going to steal one of the words that you mentioned about helping, because I think that this is going to be a key word. Whenever we join forces, even with the peers, other sectors, that will be an enabler to deliver and to leverage solutions that we have and scale up solutions that can be affordable and achievable to everyone. Thank you, everyone.
I'm Beth Powell, and together with my colleague Samantha Jacobs, who you'll meet a bit later on, we're leading the Defend Human Rights and Be Humankind pillar. Defending human rights and being humankind is not just one of our 3 commitment to life pillars. It's also the values upon which our company was founded. In 1969, Luis Seabra started Natura on a shopping street in Sao Paulo, Brazil, by showing care and attention to customers, personally presenting them with a card in single white rows as they entered. The Body Shop was founded in 1976 with Dame Anita Roddick's unwavering belief that business could be a force for good. And in 1888, David H. McConnell created Avon, pioneering a business model which enabled women to be entrepreneurs from their own homes. But we don't just prioritize defending human rights and being humankind because these are the principles upon which we are founded, but also because it makes good business sense and because it is simply the right thing to do. And my focus is how we can better the lives of our employees and the lives of our communities by providing rewarding employment opportunities to people of all genders, races, sexualities, abilities, and background. With the Commitment to Life update, we are continuing to focus on women in leadership, equitable pay, and living wage. But we are also putting more focus on one of the greatest challenges in our commitment to life, the ambition for 30% inclusion of underrepresented groups across all management levels in all of the company's business units. I am really pleased to say that we have already reached 2 targets 1 year early, closing the gender gap and at least 50% representation of women in the senior team. Our 3rd target is to achieve at least a living wage for all by 2023. Rising global inflation has resulted in higher living wages, making our continued focus on this key target more important than ever. We are currently at 99%, just shy of our target. While we recognize the importance in maintaining these key targets to support gender equality and appropriate living standards, we also want to make more progress in our fourth employee-related target, having 30% of our management employees be from underrepresented communities and groups other than gender. I am grateful to our Latin American business for paving the way on this. First, by employing 12% of employees in the Brazilian warehouse and distribution centers with a disability, and now by setting specific time-bound targets of Black representation in Brazil, our largest market, and one in which racial equity is a particular challenge. For our third target, we developed a global living wage charter to ensure a rigorous methodology is used across all countries and business units when comparing our pay to the external living wage data. We also partner with organizations on this key target to obtain up-to-date living wage data, most notably the Fair Wage Network. And we have invested in technology to support our tracking of progress when it comes to employment of those from underrepresented groups. Of course, we cannot rely on technology alone, but also need to create an environment in which employees feel comfortable disclosing this information. Natura & Co. Latin America, in particular, has invested in a sophisticated platform to track employee sentiment in real time to support its inclusivity initiatives so that not only can we recruit and promote managers from underrepresented communities, but also retain them. We also work with external organizations to further our initiatives more generally. We are a commitment maker to UN Women's Action Coalition on Economic Justice and Rights, focused on dismantling systemic barriers to ensure the full realization of women's and girls' economic rights. And both Natura & Co. and Avon signed an open letter addressed to the COP27 president calling for equal and visible representation of women in the COP27 presidency and leadership team. Our goal is for our workforce to at least reflect the societies in which we operate. As a large global organization, this is not an easy task, but there are a number of business unit-specific initiatives in place to support the employment of those in underrepresented groups and communities. The Body Shop continued to expand its open hiring program, a far-reaching and fair approach to attracting, recruiting, selecting, and onboarding employees through the elimination of common barriers to employment, such as background checks, drug screening, and previous experience. With 4,500 new recruits joining the business through open hiring, the move highlights the Body Shop's commitment to fair and inclusive hiring, focusing on a person's potential rather than their history. In November, Natura launched its anti-racist commitment with goals and commitments for employees and consultants that is inspired by the anti-racist Avon Compromise that was launched in 2020. Avon also launched the Avante program, created with the goal of accelerating the careers of employees self-declared as Black. Still being relatively new to Natura & Co., I'm really inspired by all the great work that has been done, and I'm also really excited about what's to come in this space. And I'm thrilled to introduce Helle Thomasdottir, CEO of the B Team, who will speak more about how important it is for organizations such as ours to set ambitious targets on human rights and being humankind.
Well, thank you, Beth. It is such a pleasure for me to be with you, even if virtually today, because I've been a fan of the Natura's commitment to life and its ecosystem ever since I first had the pleasure to visit in person with all of you. And it's exciting to see the progress you've made, and I am also thrilled to know what future targets you will set to achieve even greater success. To me, your commitment to life is the boldest corporate strategy that I know. It is the bravest case of a business solving the great big challenges in front of us in a way that I think is absolutely critical for success in today's society. So commitment to human rights and humankind is perhaps beautiful language, but to me, you do so much more than putting beautiful words to it. You actually bring people together. You think about the issues holistically, from sustainability to inclusion to defending human rights and being humankind. And you do that by working with and engaging deeply with all stakeholders. So bringing the issues together holistically and working with stakeholders to deliver these bold goals and brave outcomes is what sets you apart from so many others. But by doing that, you lift a high bar for others to follow. And everywhere I go and speak about courageous leadership and how much more of it we need, this year the B Team celebrates its 10th anniversary, and our theme is It's Time to Be 10 Times Bolder. I always get asked, who out there is setting the high bar? And you, my friends, always come up first. And so please keep raising the bar. I'm so proud of how you have closed the gender gap, a passion of mine for my entire life, because I know when women and young people and people with diverse backgrounds get to be at the table, we see and solve issues differently. And I'm so proud of how you work to solve the world's sustainability challenges with those most impacted and find a sustainable way forward for all stakeholders to have a win-win solution from this commitment you have to life. So Natura & Co., you are the brave leaders out there. We need you to continue with your commitment to life. We need you to continue to be brave in setting examples for other businesses, in working across stakeholders, in seeing our challenges holistically. But we also need you to continue on your journey, which to me is ultimately what courageous leadership is about, to ask our governments to help align policies and incentives to support this way of doing business. Lots of love to all of you and lots of appreciation and admiration for the hard work you do. I know it's not easy, but I know, and I want you to hold that close to your heart, that you are choosing to be the leaders that we now need. So thank you.
My name's Samantha Jacobs, and I am leading Defend Human Rights. As you have already heard, to defend human rights and to be humankind is a huge part of what Natura & Co is about. Our commitment to life is an ambitious statement of everything our brand stands for, and in it, we commit to assessing human rights risks across our supply chain and operations. We also commit to promoting access to remedy if things go wrong, as well as including the perspectives of our external stakeholders within our approach. In 2020, we committed to full traceability or certification of the supply of our critical materials by 2025. Palm oil, cotton, paper, mica, alcohol, and soy. We also pledged to adopt a robust human rights policy, in line with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, which we delivered with unanimous board approval in 2021. This year, we developed a target to operationalise our human rights policy. We committed to advance process to identify, prevent, and mitigate human rights risks across our supply chain and operations by 2027, making sure to engage with potentially affected stakeholders, promote access to remedy, and use our leverage for positive impact. Since we first set out our critical materials and human rights targets, we have made 2 additions. The first was to confirm our critical materials target will be delivered by the end of 2025, clarifying that we will no longer purchase any non-compliant ingredients from the end of that year. The second was the inclusion of a new human rights due diligence target. In 2022, we launched group-wide policies and action plans covering 6 materials that are associated with social or environmental risks, such as forced labour in mica supply chains and human rights violations on palm plantations. We also established baseline data on traceability and certification, and established annual milestones to reach our target. Each individual policy sets out material-specific traceability and certification requirements for the end of 2025. For example, in the case of palm, we expect suppliers to provide information on the origin of palm cultivation, and all palm must be certified to an agreed international standard. In the case of mica, we expect suppliers to provide information on their mining and primary processing and to present an independent third-party audit for those sites. In 2022, we achieved close to 60% certification for palm oil, over 75% certification for paper, and over 90% traceability across all critical supply chains. We are on a good path for full delivery of the commitment across all 6 critical materials by 2025. Our human rights due diligence target is based on the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights and the success of each component will be individually assessed. We will continue to identify risks to the human rights of all people connected to our business, brands, products and services, wherever those individuals may be. In order to prevent and mitigate human rights harms, we will integrate what we learn from risk assessments into our relevant internal functions so that we can take effective business-wide action. Finally, should we identify that we have caused or contributed to an adverse human rights impact, we will take immediate steps to remedy this. Our supply chains are long and complex, and collaboration with our partners is important. To support our target on critical materials, we are members of industry-specific organisations that help suppliers and buyers to increase supply chain transparency and certify production as free from human rights and environmental harm. For example, we are a member of the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, a global non-profit organisation that brings together stakeholders from across the palm oil supply chain to develop and implement global standards for sustainable palm oil production. In addition, we're a member of Action for Sustainable Derivatives, through which we collaborate with other cosmetics brands and manufacturers to increase supply chain transparency, monitor risks, and generate on-the-ground positive impact. We are also a part of the Responsible Mica Initiative, a global coalition of organisations committed to establishing a sustainable mica supply chain in India through supply chain mapping, standards, community engagement, and improved legal frameworks. To reinforce our approach to human rights due diligence, we are proud sponsors of the Responsible Recruitment Toolkit, which supports businesses in our supply chain to embed ethical recruitment and labour supply practices. We joined this initiative as a sponsor in recognition of the risks of labour exploitation within the recruitment and supply of temporary, contract and seasonal labour. Through the toolkit, suppliers and labour providers can access a range of guidance, resources, training and self-assessment tools. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Natalie Deacon, who leads sustainability at Avon. Natalie will share examples with you of the impact of putting our human rights principles into practice.
Hi, I'm Natalie Deacon and I head up Purpose and Sustainability at Avon International. At Avon, our core purpose is to help create a better world for women, which is a better world for all. For many years, we've tackled violence against women and girls, which impacts 1 in 3 women during her lifetime. To date, with our network of partners across the world, we've helped over 15 million women to overcome gender-based violence. One specific programme in our supply chain is Her Respect, an initiative that we've run with our partners at Business for Social Responsibility in factories in India and Bangladesh, where women routinely face harassment and discrimination in the workplace. The Her Respect programme shines a light on this by educating workers about gender equality and women's rights. There's training and interventions to help workers identify forms of violence and to encourage positive standards of behaviour. The programme promotes workplace grievance procedures to enable more effective remediation of issues. Through these interventions, we've been able to challenge harmful norms, encourage more respectful relationships, and create a more supportive environment for women. Women feel that they are more able to communicate and address concerns in the workplace, and they have a greater say in decision-making, both at work and outside of work. This paves the way for improved gender dynamics within families and communities and a reduction in violence against women. We're already seeing some early signs of a positive legacy effect from these interventions, and we're looking at how we can build on the positive impact of these specific programmes in other places. Women's rights are human rights, and for Avon it's hugely important that we look at how we can support women to step into their power, to assert their rights, and to safeguard their safety and dignity throughout our supply chains. Because a better world for women is a better world for all.
Hi, my name is Roberta Husler and I'm leading the Embrace Circularity and Regeneration pillar. The goal for this pillar is to work towards building circular and regenerative solutions, which can transform systems and deliver measurable positive environmental and social impact. Circular and regenerative solutions are key to deliver systemic positive change. promoting healthier natural ecosystems and thriving societies. Then it's imperative to replace the current business as usual linear models based on extraction and production that were designed with a disposal mindset and move to systemic, circular, and regenerative models that are really in service of life. My purpose today is to share how Natura & Co brands are committed to supporting this fundamental transition to prevent the consequence that scientists and climate journalists have been warning us about for so long, a planetary disaster. It might be uncomfortable to hear this, but I really need to repeat it. We cannot live like there is no tomorrow. We can no longer take it for granted that the planet will be able to continue to support life and human well-being indefinitely. It is estimated that by 2050, we will need at least 3 planets' worth of natural resources to satisfy our demand. Consumption rates of biomass, fuels, and minerals will double in 40 years, and waste could rise by 70%. Resource extraction and processing activities account for 50% of greenhouse gas emissions, with over 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress. The UN notes that 70% of the Earth's land has been changed, causing far-reaching environmental damage and socio-economic effects. Circular models, on the other hand, focus on the use of resource for as long as possible, avoiding waste, pollution, and above all, protecting and enabling regeneration of natural systems, supporting social well-being and the planetary health. The good news is that it has been estimated that 8% of a product's environmental impact can be determined at the design phase. Decisions made about material type, origin, variety, and volume, as well as their ability to biodegrade, to be refillable, compostable, disassembled, recyclable, or recycled, are key to avoid critical impact. This is the reason why we are committed to design for circularity and regeneration, from the beginning of the process until the after use of our products and services. In total, we have 6 targets within our Embrace Circularity and Regeneration pillar. 3 focus on packaging, how we design better solutions and reduce the impact it has on the planet. 2 focus on formula, the products that we make and how we make them. And our last target is about regeneration. So, starting with packaging, to embrace circularity, we have set 3 key targets for 2030. Our first target is that 100% of our packaging will be either recyclable, reusable, or compostable. We have made great progress toward this target, and we are pleased to share that last year we achieved this with 82.3% of our packaging. We are implementing strong guidelines and tools to design for recycling. This means that we are designing our packaging to be able to avoid waste and reduce the stress on natural resources. On top of designing for recycling, we do believe that reusable and refillable options, at home or in store, are also a key initiative to close the loop and fight against waste and pollution. Natura, for instance, implemented the first refill range back in 1983, 40 years ago, and keeps innovating with disruptive materials, such as the compostable plastic produced by greenhouse gas capture technology in the Biome range. Chris Davis shortly will be sharing more on some of the amazing initiatives the Body Shop have implemented, particularly on refills. Our second target is to have at least 50% of recycled plastic material incorporated back into our plastic packaging. We learned that we can fight the plastic crisis, addressing both human and environmental impacts by creating fair trade schemes with waste pickers or social cooperatives, providing better working conditions and fair price for the plastic waste collected. For our third and final packaging-based target, we are committed to enabling collection schemes in key markets where suitable recycling infrastructure does not exist. Natura & Co Latin America, for instance, achieved 54% responsible disposal in partnership with the sector program De a Mão para o Futuro in Brazil, our largest market in the region. Avon International, for its part, has a collection scheme set up in the Philippines, and is dedicating time and resource to collect insights and feedbacks on refill, concentrates, and take-back schemes. So now I'm going to hand over to Chris Davis to talk about actions the Body Shop have been taking to establish more circular models.
Dame Anita Roddick's vision for the Body Shop was always about more than just skincare and beauty. Anita was committed to creating a business that stood for ethical values, social responsibility, and environmental consciousness. And the Body Shop's Refill initiative is a practical manifestation of that philosophy, connecting her ideals with actionable steps that benefit both consumers and the planet. By providing customers with refill options, we are not only reducing plastic waste, but also encouraging a shift towards sustainable consumption habits. Today, our customers can refill recyclable aluminium bottles with hair care products, shower gels, or hand washes. This year, we also extended our refill offering to our makeup range to include lipstick and foundation powder. As of the end of March 2023, we had installed refill stations in 822 stores around the world across 35 countries. And we're continuing our rollout to help make refilling as accessible and convenient as possible for our customers. By the end of 2023, we aim to increase this number to 850 refill stations, and by the end of 2024, we aim to have refill stations in all our eligible stores around the world. So far, these stations have prevented nearly 800,000 plastic bottles going into circulation. By making the switch to refill, together we could soon save over 1 million plastic bottles and over 30 tons of plastic. The Body Shop's pioneering collaboration with Plastics for Change in India serves as another compelling example of our transformative approach to packaging solutions. We were the first company to partner with Plastics for Change back in 2019 through our Community Fair Trade scheme. And today, with more brands joining their important mission, Plastics for Change have now become the world's largest source of fair trade verified recycled plastic. Through this partnership, 2,000 waste collectors are receiving fair prices for the plastic waste they collect and now have access to better working conditions, showing how these partnerships work across multiple commitment to life pillars. Since the programme launched in 2019, we have purchased over 2,000 metric tons of plastic waste, which equates to 100 million bottles collected from the streets through our partnership. Today, half of the Body Shop's plastic packaging comes from pre-existing waste, with part of it coming from our partnership with Plastic for Change. We were built to be a force for good, with social and environmental responsibility woven into everything we do. As we continue to grow, we know that this responsibility grows with us. And that means our investment in an innovative business practice that will take us closer to a circular economy too.
So next, we look at our two formula circularity targets. Firstly, biodegradability. We want to ensure that we are not using ingredients that can have a cumulative impact. With a target of achieving a minimum 95% biodegradability, Natura & Co has already made excellent strides on this, and after 3 years we are proud to communicate that we have already achieved it. Our second target is that 100% of our new formulas will have a lower environmental footprint, measured by life cycle methodology. We are now focusing on the entire life cycle assessment, using the science-based product environmental footprint, the PEF methodology recommended by the European Commission. Our purpose is to design better formulas, measuring their full impact over its lifetime, from sourcing the ingredients to manufacturing, transporting, consumer's age, and even after use. This is a super exciting and ambitious target, especially as we are at the very beginning of this journey. A huge effort will be required to build more and better data globally, as well as refining the existing methodology, so it's possible to consolidate into one single score the planetary impact of the entire life cycle of a product. This is why we are engaging both our internal and external partners, investing in pre-competitive partnership such as the Eco Beauty Score initiative, to evolve our collective understanding building awareness, and creating systems that consumer can both understand and actively use to make more informed choice. Our final target within this pillar is to embrace regeneration. As I said before, we are committed to working in partnership to build regenerative solutions which transform systems and deliver positive impact, enabling all living systems to thrive. Regeneration is a powerful and fast-evolving concept that can be applied to many fields of knowledge. For Natura & Co., regeneration goes beyond do not harm or zero harm mindset. It has the ambition to go further and deliver measurable positive impact. For our society, reducing social inequality by building resilient livelihoods and improving well-being. And for our planet, promoting biodiversity, protecting and restoring ecosystem and its ability to provide environmental services such as carbon sequestration, climate regulation, water purification, and soil fertility. Put simply, we believe that a regenerative solution must capture carbon, conserve and restore biodiversity and ecosystems, and promote social progress, being just and inclusive for all. It's a challenging journey, and we are aware that strong collaboration and hard work is critical to build awareness, capabilities, and solutions using regenerative practices in order to make this fundamental transition. We have decided to start our journey with regenerative agriculture. Then we are committing to have at least 30% of Natura & Co key ingredients certified as regenerative by 2030. In addition, we will help small farmers and communities to adopt ethical biotrade and regenerative practice for the key ingredients certified as regenerative, supporting them to make the fair transition with us. We have been partnering with Union for Ethical Biotrade, UBT, for more than 15 years, and together we have just concluded a regenerative pilot assessment on 6 key Natura & Co ingredients against UBT ethical and regenerative standards, including living income and living wage evaluation. The assessment covered 5 different countries, 5 native species, 2 production systems, and around 14,000 farmers and wild collectors, with more than 200,000 hectares of land. Rick has been the executive director of UBT since its creation in 2008, and is now going to share how UBT is going to help businesses to make the transition towards regenerative practices.
Thank you so much, Roberta, for the opportunity to join you today and for the exciting journey to advance Natura & Co.'s commitment to life, the 2030 sustainability vision. And indeed, regenerative is a very powerful concept and tool, as you mentioned, and UBT is very pleased to partner with Natura & Co. on this and on other aspects on the sustainability work. It's a collaboration that dates back many, many years to 2008, but that continues to grow and meet new challenges, new opportunities. And as you know, Natura is a founding member of UBT. In 2008, we realized that we had a joint vision of a world in which all people and biodiversity thrive. And since then, we've worked together through ethical sourcing of ingredients of biodiversity. And why ethical sourcing? Well, ethical sourcing is because it's really at the heart of Natura & Co., but it is also the foundation of humanity's health, our economies, our cultures, and our well-beings. And it's even more essential if you go to one of the core areas of Natura & Co., which is, for example, the Amazon region, where you're sourcing from local communities, small farmers, and indigenous communities. Now, unfortunately, and I think it is unfortunate that still after so many years, this issue is still so relevant, and it is becoming more and more relevant. And that is because we are losing biodiversity in a very rapid way. And it's because of that in 2020 that the United Nations announced what they call the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. And this is because conservation is not enough anymore, and we need to proactively engage into regeneration. And at the end of 2023, the UN also adopted a global biodiversity agenda in which conservation and restoration are key priorities. And together they come with the global climate change agenda, and the three kind of the restoration, the conservation, and the climate change agenda together form a very important pillars for the future to come. And regenerative practices kind of bring all of this together. So we speak about regenerative practices where cultivation or wild collection kind of contribute to natural processes that take place in an ecosystem. And that can then, it brings in carbon capture, it brings in soil restoration, biodiversity conservation, but also very importantly supports local livelihoods. So really the social biodiversity. So our regenerative program of UET is supporting companies to implement regenerative practices in supply chains. And of course, Natura & Co. is a key partner in this for us. As you mentioned, Roberta, over the last years, we've done a number of pilots in different parts of the world, which really show that regenerative practices can address kind of this triple issue of biodiversity conservation, address climate change, and generate a local livelihood. And over the next years, we will be collaborating with Natura & Co., its suppliers, the farmers, and the local communities to put in place or strengthen regenerative practices. And some will need to do more work than others, but it will always build on what we've already been doing together for many years with new ambitions, new technologies. And the idea is that between now and 2030, we will identify very specific practices that not only restore biodiversity, but also capture carbon, mitigate some of the climate change practice problems, and then generate also more local income. And the targets are ambitious, but this is really what the world needs. And we very much look forward to partnering with you on this between now and 2030. So thank you so much.
In addition to our key ingredients, we are piloting regenerative agriculture with Natura & Co. commodities. A great example is our palm oil ecosystem with local farmers and traditional communities. For more than 15 years, we have been cultivating palm in the Amazon using a regenerative model, and we have proven the feasibility of regenerative palm farming using science-based methodologies. Our regenerative model is based on agroforestry and prioritizes the environment and the communities, diverging from large-scale monoculture. This promotes land health and diversity and hugely benefits the soil. This model also relies on natural pest control, reducing the need for harmful chemicals. And by collaborating closely with local farmers, we ensure fair compensation. Efficient water use, natural pest management, and innovative waste solutions are key aspects of this model. By embracing regenerative practices and continuous improvement, we strive to enhance palm oil production for both the ecosystem and its stakeholders. We truly believe that our innovative palm regenerative system challenges the notion of the palm oil requiring monoculture in Brazil, and we are now driving the transition from conventional to ecological models in partnership with our stakeholders. To conclude, I want to emphasize that embracing circularity and regeneration is about systemic change at scale. Our ultimate goal is to engage all our stakeholders to make the change with us, to be change makers. We are super excited to share our sustainability targets with you today, and I want to invite you to collaborate with us to build awareness, capabilities, and solutions towards circularity and regeneration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberta. What an amazing note to close out on. However, this isn't actually a close, because my friends, we are just at the beginning. This isn't a journey that we are all going to be on together. Hi, everyone. My name is Char Love, and I'm the Global Director of Advocacy at Natura & Co. Now, over this time we've had together, we've been hearing about this moment we're in right now, how extraordinary it is, how pressing some of the challenges are that we're facing. We've heard that this is a moment where we must be guided by the science and being moved by what we know is needed. It's a time of urgency where we all need to be brave and bold. And it's a time to remember that each and every one of us is a change maker, and we must be focused on driving systems level change. This is where you come in. Because over the last hour, what you've been hearing is about some of the things we're working on at Natura & Co. But hopefully you also captured the golden thread that's woven into every single part of our approach to our commitment to life. That golden thread is partnership. We really, really deeply believe that in order to address the interconnected challenges that are facing our planet today, we must find ways to join forces and come together in collaborations, in coalitions. Ultimately, this is a time for us to walk together and become a movement of movements. Now, we are incredibly grateful to all of the partners, all the organizations, all the people we've been on this journey with so far. And you've heard from some of them today. There are so many others I wish I had the time to say a direct and thank you to. But we know that we are all out there and we are all focused on these challenges together. There is no doubt that this is an extraordinary moment in history that we are living through. And in that extraordinary moment, it will call for extraordinary partnerships and extraordinary leadership. We all have power, and this is a time to use that power as a force for good. Now, you might be thinking, what does that mean in practice? Well, I want to share with you 5 ways in which we can think about how to use that power as a force for good. Number 1 is to actually know that power, know our own superpowers we have when it comes to being a change maker. Some of us will have skills in being able to influence, to talk to people. Others will be quiet researchers and practitioners. Others will be movement builders. To address these challenges, we need everyone. And if you want to get a sense for what kind of power you have, check out the Body Shop's website where you can see some examples of the different kinds of change makers that are out there. Number 2 is to really do research. Understand the issues that really speak to you, the issues that you want to take a stand on, and find ways to continually refresh yourself with information that is coming up on that particular issue area. Number 3 is to find that courage, to be brave, to be bold, and to speak out on those issues that are important to you. But it's not actually just about having that voice. It's also about listening. We know we are in a time where there are a range of different opinions. And one of the things that will be important is to understand how we can listen and understand and build bridges between different opinions. Number 4 is to know that we must also find ways to join forces with others. This work is hard, and what will help us as we move forward on this journey are to find people who can cheer us on and who we can cheer on, people who can hold us when things get tough or who can march alongside us to really champion for these issues. Partnerships are key. Last but certainly not least is to find ways to share your power. Help other people feel it. Help other people understand their own power and how to harness. In doing so, help find ways to lift up the voices of those who otherwise may not be heard. On behalf of the Natura & Co team, I just want to extend our huge gratitude and thanks for your time, for your friendship, for your partnership, for your commitment, and for your willingness to really step up in this moment that matters. Let's do this, friends.